Hi there, I'm Austin, and today I will be speaking to you about a rather controversial issue that pops up in media a lot, and I believe many people have become either desensitized to it as they don't feel it matters in any way, or they've got the wrong false facts about it because many of the reports out there indicate that this subject is very negative when it's not nearly as negative as people would have you believe. The topic I'm speaking of is, of course, video games and their effects on the human brain and the brain of young people and old people alike. Specifically, I will be focusing on violent games, violent video games, because not only are those far more prominent, but that's mainly what I have experience with. So, without further ado, allow me to begin. First, I would like to focus a bit on the negative effects. Just list you their arguments. Now, there's a lot of media sources, a lot of news sources. People try to convince you that they have purely negative effects. They kill brain cells. They turn people into murderers, whatever. And there's actually very few negative effects that we actually see through rigorous studies. The few negative effects there are effects that will take place regardless of what you're dealing with, regardless of things that are really dangerous, like drugs, or things as simple as things that are like actually healthy for you, like playing football, running in the mornings. And these things are, of course, addiction and overuse. Video games can be a very effective thing if used correctly, and like with many other things, video games can become troublesome if you become addicted. There are many of people that ruin their lives becoming addicted to anything, whether it's drugs, video games. There are countless things, and that's due to the fact that your brain will, once it finds something that makes it feel good or feel happy, or once it finds something that relieves a bit of that stress, it's going to develop a dependence upon that thing. The best way to deal with it is through responsible use of said thing. Now, the other effect is overuse, and that was touched on a bit when I spoke about the addiction. Yes, video games are very bad if you're doing nothing else. If you're sitting at the TV staring for hours and hours at a time, you will suffer some eye damage. Due to your inactivity, you will most likely suffer some drawbacks to not being active, because anytime you're being very inactive, you will lose certain aspects that you would have otherwise, like longevity, the ability to run and jump for hours on end. You'll lose that if you're too inactive for too long. Now, this isn't about the negative effects, so without further ado, I'm going to get on with the positive effects. Now, studies all across the board have shown that video games improve the brain's function in all aspects. That goes for educational purposes like school and academics. That goes with just cognitive function in general, how your brain works. It will get sharper and better. And this can improve social function, academic function, and your emotional function of the brain. Now, with our academic brain function, the main way video games improve that is through focusing on things that practice eye-hand coordination or problem solving. Many video games today, especially the role-playing genre of games, many of these games will give you an infinite number of choices on how you can solve your problems, including options that will maybe avoid getting in that problem altogether in the first place. Now, this can improve real-life skills. Many RPGs have sort of economies that are as sophisticated as our economies. You can develop economic strength through careful consideration in some of the MMORPGs, which are massively multiplayer online games. This is when thousands and thousands of people are interacting with each other, interfacing, speaking with each other, communicating with each other, trading with each other. Economies in these real games are so close to our own that we are believing that some of these players that try to solve the economic problems that they face in video games, their applications can apply to our economy in the real world. There are several studies going on currently with the game World of Warcraft, which is a very popular MMORPG. This game features very similar economic problems that we face in real life, and the players of this game have actually begun to solve their economic problems. They've presented many, many different options as to how we might approach fixing this problem. And professionals in the field of economy, like accountants, people that work with real numbers in the real world, people that are working with this money, have looked at these propositions and they're actually fairly sound. They're things that we could put into action in the real world that might work. But it isn't just there. Even simple functions, it will improve your ability to solve any sort of problems, whether it's math, reading, science. This genre of video game is notorious for being complicated enough to teach you real-world things. Now, even the less complex games, such as shooters, for instance, this is a very hot topic in media, where everybody's like, oh, games that emulate murder and games that emulate war scenarios cannot be anything but bad. They teach people to kill, they teach people to be bad. But really, if you're going to go out and murder someone after playing video games, your brain had that predisposition before playing games. Video games do not make people aggressive. Our studies have shown that video games actually improve people's ability to cope with anger and aggression. They relieve stress. So it's actually quite the opposite, that people believe that games create murderers. People that may have anger issues, maybe get into a lot of fights, playing video games can alleviate that anger and make it so that they can cope with it better through showing them that getting mad doesn't necessarily help you in any situation. And shooters have a wide berth of very effective things that they can offer to promote intelligence and brain function. One of these things is that shooters will improve your eye-hand coordination, your ability to locate targets, like find targets within your group, find a specific person. It increases your memorization skills as well. Games can do anything to improve it. They improve social skills as well. With what I was talking about earlier, the MMORPGs, some of these games are highly tactical and highly strategic. They require very precise, very concise communication between one another so that the right thing gets done in the right way. Otherwise, things get very ugly very fast. I've seen it myself playing some of these games. But even the more simpler multiplayer games that allow communication will allow you to have conversations with people if you're not talking about battle tactic and strategy. It will let you just converse with people. I've met several people on games that I haven't met in the real world, and I consider myself to be very well acquainted with them. And speaking to people on an online community such as that will help you build social skills for the real world. It'll help you talk to people, help you be more comfortable with getting out there. Now, that is really all I have to say on this topic. If you have considered playing video games, if you do play video games, I would recommend wholly that you continue doing it. Because all video games, regardless how simple or how complex, can improve some skills. The more complex, the better, as far as improving brain function. But even the most simplistic games can help build hand-eye coordination and skills such as that. So my advice to you, if you haven't played video games, is to give them a try. And my advice to you, if you are playing video games, if you play video games, keep trying, keep playing, as long as you have it in control, because these video games can help you a lot, and these video games can teach you a lot. So, I would suggest to you go out there and play. You might just learn something yourself.